Andrew Cuomo charging Pedro Espada with mismanaging his nonprofit, state Senate races ramping up, and more details about the stalemate over the state budget. That's plenty for me to talk about with my next guests, and they are our insiders, veterans of the New York political scene. On one side of the table is Bruce Jory. He's the former senior advisor to two ex-governors, now with Corning Place Consulting, and an adjunct professor of political science at UAlbany. And across from him is Bob Bellafiore, former press secretary to Governor George Pataki, now a senior partner at Eric Moore & Associates. Thanks for joining me tonight, guys. Are you ready?
Yes, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Before we start, we brought a gift. Now that you're the area's newest television star, we thought you'd need a fresh Sharpie to sign all the autographed pictures that people are going to ask.
Oh, that's so kind. Thanks. You're going to get it. Okay. Moving right along.
We're generous people. I just want you to know.
You are very generous. This is underneath the gift band. Just want you to know.
I took it out of the drawer in my office.
Very kind. You're stealing from the office. That's great. Thanks. So let's start. Speaking of stealing, let's start with Pedro Espada, shall we? Yeah. Who gets hurt the worst, the Democrats or the Republicans on this particular one, in terms of political fallout from the majority leader slapped with these charges, civil charges of bilking the taxpayers for $14 million?
I think it's an institutional shot. I don't think it's going to hit the Democrats or the Republicans in a partisan way. I think it adds to the public's outrage over the way the Senate's been conducted over the last 2 years, particularly the failed coup last year, where Espada and Montserrat were first were with the Democrats, joined the Republicans, came back. I think the fact that he's been investigated by Andrew Cuomo, a Democrat, takes away from this notion that it's Republicans uncovering Democratic problems. I think it's an institutional shot at the legislature.
So a pox on both their houses.
Unfortunately, if you look at the polling data in the most recent Siena poll, but it's backed by Siena and Marist, it's incumbents are in for a rough ride, particularly upstate in the suburbs.
You agree?
No, I think I agree to a certain extent. I do think it feeds the public's distaste for Albany and the sense of dysfunction and corruption. I mean, you look at the last couple of years up here, and it's been extraordinary.
When will it end? Right?
Maybe never. Maybe never.
I agree.
But I do think it could play in a couple of key races where Democrats are a little nervous in the state Senate. I think it could play in Suffolk County in the Foley race and in Western New York in the Stokowski race. And those are the two races that Republicans are most eager to try to make inroads on, and those are the two races that the Democrats are most nervous about.
And there's already issues, right? So there are already, what you're talking about is almost death by 1,000 paper cuts. You have in the Foley race, you have Foley, the MTA payroll tax problem, that's a problem. You have the gay marriage vote problem, might be a problem. You have his yes vote there. You have the Suffolk County flip of Steve Levy in the governor's race, pulling votes. That could be a problem. I mean, you just have all sorts of things fomenting there.
You presume Levy wins the primary. If Levy loses the primary and there's a weak candidate at the top of the ticket and there's not much energy in Suffolk, Foley might be in very good shape in that race on that issue.
Yeah, but if a Republican ties Espada to him, can't you see the ad now? Can't you see the ads about Foley with Espada, and they all, stood up and took him back?
And what about when the Democrats put up the counter ad of Dean Skelos and John DeFrancisco standing there swearing him in as majority leader? I mean, guys, you are reaching. This is not going to be used in a partisan way. You're not going to be able to project that into local races. These races are going to be driven, you're right, on the issue of property taxes, on the issue of that commuter tax that was put in. That's a volatile issue. That's a harpoon to a vital organ. With Pedro Espada, both sides should be embarrassed by the way they allowed themselves to be used by Pedro Espada.
But wait. What about insurgents? Because actually today we saw a statement come out from a guy named Andrew Russo, who I assume you're familiar with. Mm-hmm. He's one of several Republicans who's trying to unseat Dave Valesky. And he took a shot at Valesky for voting for, quote-unquote, which actually didn't happen, but for supporting, let's argue, Pedro Espada. Okay, let's say that. He's an insurgent. There's nothing to tie him to Pedro Espada. He doesn't have to worry about that optics of Pedro Espada. He's never been in the chamber. So can't the insurgent Republican candidates use this? I guess arguably the insurgent Democratic candidates could use it too.
The biggest political, in terms of which party is going to maintain control